Good evening, friends. Meeting again in the session of homeopathic philosophy. So we'll start with today's session, and we're discussing regarding the concept of role of vital force in the disease. And Dr. Chetty he has tried to explain it in thorough, explaining that what exactly the disease is, where the disease is, and how the modern science looks towards the disease. So concept how if your concept is wrong, the treatment becomes wrong. And if your treatment is clear, then everything becomes clear. And that's why he tried to impose on your mind exactly what disease is and what is the role of vital force in the disease. And that's why he explains over there this derangement of the vital force is the basic element because of which the person becomes diseased. So prior is interior, where the dynamic derangement happens. And once this dynamic derangement happens, the disease happens to be there at the functional and sensational level, remains for some time. If you try to palliate, suppress by any means, then the pathological changes starts appearing, the cellular tissue changes appears, and the pathology develops. But that is an end product of the disease. That is not the originally a disease, or it is not the cause of the disease. And this he wants to explain to you that when you consider the disease, you must take into consideration every dynamic disorder has its origin internally, except where the cause is external, in the form of accident, in the form of some exciting cause, in the form of some mechanical impression. Otherwise, every disease, specifically when you think about the chronic disease, has its origin inside, and from there the disorder develops. And that's why if anyone talks to you that what is the good medicine for leprosy, it means that fellow is not understanding the concept of homeopathy. There is no fixed remedy for the leprosy. There is a remedy for the patient who is suffering from leprosy. So 10 patients who are suffering from leprosy have a different medicine. You cannot define it on the name of the disease. And once you understand this, then you will not treat the disease, you will treat the patient who is suffering from the disease. And that's what we have finished in the last lecture. Let us go ahead with the next paragraph. What he says. To become conversant with symptoms, to judge of the sphere and progress of disease by the study of symptomatology is the requirement necessary for homeopathy. Of course, bystanders will say to the patient that doctor cannot know much. He did not give you a physical examination. After the examination of the symptoms has been made, there is no reason why you should make a physical examination of the patient. But do not let this deprive you of becoming thoroughly educated in the studying symptoms. Because the real study of sick man is the meditation of his symptoms. And to become wise in symptoms is to become an able prescriber. Just a minute. I think we have turned towards the last paragraph. No, earlier paragraph we have to start. Good person there. No, what a nonsense. I think we have finished up to the paragraph that is not homeopathy. We'll start over there. I have started with last paragraph, but it is not. Page number 93 on my book. Your book 81 might be it in your book. Okay. What a nonsense. That is not adjusting the remedy to the state of the patient that existed before he had these structural changes and fixed groups of symptoms. For each, you adjust a remedy to the pathological condition. You are not adjusting it to the patient, to his very beginnings and from his beginnings down to the present time. He need not have the pathological results. All he needs to have is symptoms. The patient can cure his own morbid anatomy. If you will take away the first state of disorder, his economy will be saved. If the results of the disease cannot be removed, the patient himself will return to the health. The morbid anatomy will undergo such changes that it will not affect his state of health. The fibrinous adhesions need not necessarily to go away. A state of quiescence comes and remains year after year, so long as he remains well. So he's explaining over there where the disease is. Disease is not in the pathological part. The pathology is the end product of the disorder. Disorder started at the dynamics, and it starts with the first functional symptom. For example, a patient comes to you with a severe headache. He is having headache since last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and every time he has investigated. After investigations, he found that there is nothing. For nearly 2 years, 3 years, he has investigated and nothing found. But every time he was palliated with the help of allopathic medicine. Now this fellow comes to you, and if you again investigate that fellow and you ask him to go for investigation, for example, you have asked him to go for the MRI brain, and there is found to be a cyst or tumor over there. This tumor is the end product of the disease. Disease has started 4 years back, 3 years back. Earlier it was in the functional state. If you would have treated that at that functional level, you would not have this pathology. This is the end product with which he is presenting to you now. Now your aim is to find it out a remedy for his functional, sensational symptoms, not for his pathology. Your aim should be to treat that functional symptoms. If you treat that with a right simillimum, then that patient will be cured. The pathology regresses gradually because that is an end product. And even if it persists, patient remains in the state of health with the same pathology remaining over there as it is. Because that is not the cause of the disease, that is the end product of the disease. And once you understand this, then it becomes simple what to treat in a disease. And that's why in the third aphorism only, Hahnemann said, starts with that. If the physician may clearly pursues what is to be curable in the diseases, this sentence he starts in the third aphorism. And this is what actually Kent wants to say. What exactly you have to treat. So if you are treating a patient of a cancer, you have to treat that patient, not his cancer. You have to understand that patient and you have to find it out remedy for that patient and not for his cancer. So the same concept he is trying to explain over there, that this is too important to understand. Then what he says, to think of remedies for cancer is a confusion, but to think of remedies for the patient who appears to have cancer is orderly. And you will be astonished to know that wonderful changes will take place in this condition when remedies that correspond to the conditions before the cancer began are administered. So cancer never develops within a day. It takes long time to develop, years together also. So symptoms which are prior to the cancer gives you individuality, gives you exact remedy, and that remedy does the wonders in such cases. You can treat those cases with the help of proper remedy. Cancer is the result of the disorder, which disorder must be turned in order and must be healed. We dwell upon this for many paragraphs, bring out this distinction between symptoms and results of disease. The true morbid sensations of healthy organism are what we must first consider. It is the first assumed that the organism is in a state of health and capable of performing its functions. And then the morbid sensations of this healthy organism are the symptoms that come to the physician as the forerunner of the death in parts and finally death of a whole. The patient tells the physician his sensations of numbness of his fingers, of the pricking in his skin, of the pain in his stomach, etc. All these sensations of any part of which he is reminded. The healthy man is not reminded of his parts. He passes his stool without pain in the part. If he have pain or bleeding, he is reminded of this part. If he passes his urine without sensation, we say it is normal. He is in freedom. But if burning and smarting and tenesmus follows, he is reminded of it, and this sensation constitutes the symptom. So he is explaining you exactly how the disease presents. Disease always presents at this level when the functional sensational symptoms comes out. So patient who used to pass stools regularly without any pain, he is in the state of health, he is in the freedom. But once he starts getting pain, there is a stitching type of pain, or if there is a pricking type of pain, if there is splinter-like pain, if there is a burning pain, all those things, if you catch over there, then these are the things which you have to understand. Then that symptom is the patient symptomatology. That symptoms defines the person is having disease. That symptom is individualizing where you can get a right remedy for the patient. And these are the things which he is explaining over there. These constitutes the disease and not the end product. If you examine the patient and find it out, there is some hemorrhoid. The hemorrhoid is not the disease. Hemorrhoid is the end product of the disease. Or if you examine and find it out, there is fissure in ano. Fissure in ano is the end product of the disease. What constitute is the disease is the internal dynamic derangement of the vital force. Only thing is that when you treat, you have to treat that patient, you don't have to take into consideration the hemorrhoids, or you don't have to take into consideration fissure in ano, but what symptoms it presents, because those symptoms gives you individualizing future. So some patient says that there is splinter-like pain. Some patient says that as if it has been cut by a glass. Everyone will present it in a different manner. Someone will say there is tremendous burning. I used to feel better only by hot fomentation. Everyone will present symptoms in a different manner, and that symptoms are very much necessary for the homeopath to find it out a right remedy. And this is what he is explaining over there. The symptomatology, the totality of the symptoms is the sole guide in the finding it out a right remedy for the patient. If the patient is waxy and pallid, waxy means his face is greasy. If the patient is waxy and pallid, has the papules and pustules or swollen and varicose veins with the red face, red eyes, etc., these the physician can see and note down. Again, there are things that physician cannot see and that the patient cannot tell. That the mother, sister, husband, or wife should relate to the physician at his office. These symptoms constitute that there is knowable of the sickness, that which appears to the mind of the physician, upon which he makes up his verdict. When the strong symptoms are all gathered together, the physician is studying the case, must separate out those things that were observed years ago from those things which are observed today, noting how that have changed and why changed. Sometimes they have been changed by the drugs, so that whole nature of the economy is giving out a different groups of symptoms. So if you are dealing with the chronic patient and suffering from 4 to 5 years, and if you find it out, what is the ODP, origin, duration, and progress, and you ask that how it has started. First question always you must make that how your disease has started. Tell me everything right from the start of the disease till today. There you get exactly what patient was suffering from. Because at present, he has consumed many varieties of treatment, because of which the symptom gets altered. You cannot find or choose a right remedy. But if you get the symptoms prior to take any treatment, those are pure symptoms of his internal disorder, and that individualizes the patient. And that's why it is so much necessary to catch those symptoms which were there prior to take any treatment, and those guides you towards the right remedy in these cases. So he is explaining exactly what one should look for. You have to take into consideration the symptoms before taking any allopathic medicines, any treatment. And then he explains the physician must learn the changes all along the line from beginning to end. What symptoms represented this sick man 10 years ago and what symptoms represent him now. Perhaps now he has morbid anatomy, pathological conditions in his lungs, liver, or kidney. The physician who has been for 20 years observing previous and present conditions in this manner by hearing the symptom can practically locate morbid anatomy. He can tell where it will appear, knows when pus is in the organ and where, and he can foretell pretty well what is soon to go on in the economy. I would rather trust to the careful study of the symptoms than most physicians' written diagnosis of thesis or organic disease of the liver or of the heart. The symptoms do not lie. They do not exist from the opinions of the men who have thumped, whom thump means to mm, uh, to press or to struck and pounded over the human body to find it out what is going on inside, which is the which is in many instances confusing even to the best diagnostician. Considerable observations among the medical men will lead one to discover that dollar is the and cheap end of the practice of medicine. Here, dollar is pain. Dollar means pain. That the dollar is the cheap end of the practice of medicine when practiced in the old way. There is nothing else in it, nothing to admire or say. So, what he is explaining? He is explaining you must be happy if you get the proper symptomatology. You must get happy when you get the totality of the symptoms and that totality which was pure totality before administrating any medicine, because that totality will guide you to give you exact remedy. It is not the diagnosis which will going to give you a remedy. You will be happy to know the diagnosis, but it is not useful for therapeutic purpose in homeopathy. Yes, you can understand the disease progress, prognosis, or everything on the basis of diagnosis, but not the therapeutic value. It doesn't carry therapeutic value in homeopathy because diagnosis is always made on the common symptoms. So you cannot reach to the right remedy on the basis of right diagnosis. And this is what he is explaining. Instead of that, if you get a thorough symptoms, the pain, that is what he is explaining, its modalities, its location, its sensation, its concomitant, then it is quite easy to catch the right remedy. And then he explains, to become conversant with symptoms, to judge of the sphere and progress of disease by study of symptomatology is the requirement necessary for the homeopath. This is too important to get the symptom, understand the progress of the symptoms, how they have changed, where they present, what is the sensation. That guides you towards the right remedy. Of course, bystanders will say to the patient that doctor cannot know much. He did not give you physical examination. If you don't physically examine the patient, patient never gets satisfied. This is for the patient's sake. You must examine each and every patient because that creates a good rapport and understanding. If you don't examine, this is the thought which develops in patient's mind. After the examination of the symptoms has been made, there is no reason why you should not make physical examination of the patient, but do not let this deprive of you becoming thoroughly educated in the studying symptoms. Because the real study of the sick man is the meditation of his symptoms, and to become wise in symptoms is to become able prescriber. So he is explaining if you have to treat him properly, you must know the symptom. Physical examination will guide you to understand his disease, the diagnostic disease. But physical examination will not guide you to find it out right remedy unless and until you get the total symptomatology. Study physical diagnosis to your heart's content, but weigh carefully what you discover and compare it with symptoms in order to ascertain what the different symptoms mean. What he said? If you know physical diagnosis, well and good. Get happy, but that will not guide you to the right remedy. What guide you to the right remedy is the totality of the symptoms. You cannot study the symptoms of man without becoming extremely well acquainted with the nervous system. The anatomy of the nerves of the brain and of the brain should be thoroughly known. Not always that you may name the nerve, but that you may know where it is and what its functions are. And this study should be continued throughout all your life. And he is explaining that knowledge of anatomy, knowledge of physiology, knowledge of pathology, yes, it is necessary. To understand the things clearly, it is so much necessary. The physician should be conversant with anatomy and physiology, and but by studying the symptomatology, he acquires a knowledge of physiology which it is impossible to obtain in any other way. He acquires a knowledge of functions and operations of arteries, nerves, and muscles because they call attention to themselves when in disturbance, and he sees therefore how the symptoms manifest themselves. So, with this knowledge, he can understand the proper symptom. He can understand where exactly the patient presents, what patient exactly presents, where he wants to say that he is having the pain, what type of pain it is. So you should be thorough with all those things. You should be thorough with anatomy. You should be thorough with physiology. You should be thorough with pathology. You should be thorough with medicine. But that knowledge, along with that knowledge, you should be thorough with the understanding the symptomatology of the patient. By studying the symptom in the recorded pathogenesis, one may learn much about the true pathology. Morbid anatomy furnishes no basis for prescribing, but true pathology is often of the greatest benefit, helping the image of the sickness to shape itself before the mind. And he is explaining over there. The true pathology means the pathology which expresses the signs and symptoms is the true pathology. That's what we have to look for. That's what you're going to get exactly about the understanding of the patient. So morbid anatomy will not going to give anything for the prescription point of view. So if patient comes with cleft palate, you can't do anything because this is morbid anatomy. There is no role of homeopathy. It is purely a surgical case. So morbid anatomy will not going to guide you toward the remedy. But if patient comes with certain typical sensation that he is having very severe pain on in his maxilla and it is so heavy that as if it is bursting and he feels that there will be oh so severe pain, I cannot tolerate doctor, anytime it will be burst and this is too painful. He's giving you exactly what is happening and he says that doctor as if it is a volcano which is coming out. He's giving you symptomatology. He's presenting you the remedy. Only thing is that you have to catch, and remedy is hekel alava. So here diagnosis will not going to give you remedy. Here what symptoms it presents gives you the right remedy. And this is what is the art of homeopathy. So understand what exactly disease is, where exactly the disease is, what is the role of vital force in the process of disease development, and treat that deranged vital force with the help of this totality of the symptom. You will give, you will get ideal cure in the patient. So that's all about the chapter number 9, which we have finished, where the role of vital force in the disease we have discussed. Tomorrow will not tomorrow, on Monday we'll continue with the next chapter about the Kant's philosophy, that is chapter number 10. So till that period, thank you very much for attending the session. And today evening we'll continue with our sulfur. Sulfur we are discussing in detail. I think it will require 2 more lectures, but it is a good remedy to be understood, a very common remedy in our day-to-day practice. So that's all for today. We'll conclude the session and we'll meet on Monday. Horseshoe kidney, you are not prescribing remedy for horseshoe kidney. If any symptomatology is there, you have to take into consideration that symptomatology and accordingly you have to treat. If there are no symptoms, you cannot, because that is morbid anatomy. Okay. So that's all for today. Thank you. Thanks a lot.